Corona, and we are achievers, tenacious, and courageous. Salud.
No mires para atrás, el futuro no se encuentra ahí, no se encuentra nada en el mundo que no puedas lograr, con fe lo vas a conseguir,
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Ajusta Tu Corona. It's the three of us tonight. I am Lilian Maldonado, founder of Ajusta Tu Corona, and we are so excited to have you here. I'm just all bubbly and giggly because the holidays are around the corner, and I'm all excited about our guests that we're having tonight. So I'm just going to let the girls introduce themselves.
Hola, mi gente, aquí with La Margarita. I am excited because I missed last week's and the week before. So I apologize, ladies, with me being in West Coast time and in the desert. But yes, I'm happy. I'm excited. I love your bubbly attitude because you know what? That's what the holidays should be about. Less stress and more love and gratitude. So we are all here today and it's phenomenal. And from what I see, it's going to be a great show.
Yes.
As a wordsmith, I'm going to love everything that I'm going to listen to. So
beautiful. I am Francia Rodriguez. I am your real estate agent, your digital marketing service, entrepreneur, social media manager. I am the co-host of this amazing platform program, Ajusta Tu Corona, with my amazing true friends. I want to call you guys my true friends. And welcome, everybody.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you.
So we want to welcome everybody that we have on tonight. There is a Gina Ryan watching. Richie Rich, always up front and center. Milagros, good evening. Brenda, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Richie Rich is saying something is wrong with the picture. Is that a jacket? Yes, I am wearing a jacket. It was a little chilly when I went for my walk, so I'm wearing a jacket, but the weather is very nice here, if that's what you're referring to. And
he's in South Florida, so he's throwing it in your face.
Yeah, but that's okay. I'm okay. And this weather is still nice for me. Hello, Lily. Welcome. Wonderful to see you here. So I am going to bring on our guests. I met this lady about a year ago. Absolutely beautiful soul, so sweet. And I don't know how we just hit it off. We're like, blah, 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 blah. We just hit it off. And she happens to fit right in with our Ajusta Tu Corona and our message that we are out there trying to help women of adversity. She is in the process of writing a book, and I am excited, super excited, because she has chosen Ajusta Tu Corona to let the world know about this upcoming book. So please, everybody, welcome Sharissa Hardaway. Hi, Sharissa.
Welcome.
We can't hear you. You're on mute.
How you guys doing tonight, ladies?
Good.
Beautiful.
Good. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here with you ladies tonight. I can't wait.
Sharissa, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay. My name is Sharissa Hardaway. I currently reside in Connecticut. I live with 4 of my 5 beautiful children. 3 which I birthed, 2 which thank God were my bonus babies. I have a beautiful 26-year-old, a beautiful 2 beautiful 19-year-olds. One I birthed, one unfortunately I did not. A 5-year-old boy and a 3-year-old daughter. I'm originally from the Bronx. Came up as a normal brown black girl in the Bronx, middle class family. I went to Catholic school all my life, elementary, high school, college, and I just went through some things that I would like to talk about tonight with you ladies that I think a lot of women go through in silence. And I just wanted to put my story out there so maybe somebody can hear it and know that they're not alone.
Absolutely. and we absolutely love that, that you want to do that. I feel that there's healing in the journey and in telling your story, and empowering other women to tell their story so that they realize there is a tribe out there willing to uplift them and help them in their journey of healing. Please tell us about your story.
Okay, so like I told you before, I grew up in a middle class family in the middle of the Bronx. I wouldn't say I was in the ghetto, but if you know the Bronx, it's got pockets. I was kind of like in that little pocket where like you had nice homes for like 3 blocks, and then like 3 blocks down there was like buildings. um, and I lived a normal life. I have a beautiful and amazing mom and a great dad. I grew up with all my life. My dad was a ladies' man. So my even though my mom was the head of household as far as the woman, and I had brothers and sisters younger than me, my dad wanted us all to live in the same house. So my mother took care of them all. She was a strong woman, because I don't know how she could have done it. But I'm so happy she did, because me and my sisters and brothers love each other. But because we had so many sisters and brothers, my father, if you know me, my father built these tall 10, 11-foot fences in the Bronx around our houses. And he said, you have each other, so you play with each other. So I kind of grew up sheltered. You know, my best friends are my sisters and my brothers, and those are who I'm with usually at all times. So I went to Catholic school for elementary. I went to Catholic school for high school. I went to Catholic school for college. And if you know the Bronx, well, I guess it happens everywhere. You have your Catholic school kids and you have your public school kids. So other Catholic school kids, regardless of what school you went to, you kind of knew each other. If you went to one Catholic school, you knew at least 5 to 10 people in other Catholic schools. And if you went to public school, you knew each other as well. But they didn't usually intermingle. So from high school, I dated a few guys, but they were like in the same realm I was in. We went to Catholic school elementary, we went to Catholic school in high school. When I got to college is when I met this gentleman, and he was different. He wasn't hood, because, you know, they say he's hood. He wasn't really hood, but he was different from me. We lived 2 different lives. He struggled a lot when he was younger. He didn't have his dad. His mom died when he was very young. So it was something that he went through very early, and it was traumatic, and it kind of like took through his whole life. It was something that he never really got over. So when we met each other, it was an instant connection. And it was different for me because my dad loved me my whole life. Never ever told me anything different. I was just as good as the rest of my sisters. But if you know, like in black and brown cultures, sometimes the lighter or the fair skinned is more favored. And even though my father loved me to death, most of my sisters and brothers had Latina moms. My mom was African American. So I looked different. I was darker. I had coarser hair. And my father, I don't think he subconsciously did this, but he always made it in my household where if you were lighter and had longer hair, you were beautiful. It wasn't that he was knocking my beauty. He was just, that's what he liked. But as a little girl, that's what it did to me. It made me feel like I was kind of like the ugly duckling. So when I met this gentleman, he loved everything about me, from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. And it was different for me. I wasn't less than anyone else. And I had been missing that. And because he had went through so much as he grew up in his childhood, he was missing someone like me. And so it fit for us. But the problem happens, in my eyes, is that when 2 broken people get together and try to love each other, we try to fill that void with each other's love. And it can't happen that way because we didn't love ourselves enough. The love we gave to each other was like, you know, negative and a positive to go together, but 2 negatives repel. It was kind of like that. It was kind of like, even though as much as he tried to love me, I would never take it in as well as I needed to because I didn't love myself, and vice versa. So we dated, and we dated for a very long time. He's the reason I have my amazing 19-year-old now. And it wasn't always drama. I don't want to say it wasn't always physical, because as I went through writing the book, I had to reminisce, which was really hard for me. I think that's why it took me so long to write the book myself. You have to go back through those situations to write it. And I caught myself starting a chapter and going through a situation that I tried to block out for so many years. So I would close the book. Not going to do it. I've been trying to write this book for 3 years. And then I would say, no, I'm going to do it now. And then I would go back and another memory would hit and it would pull me back into the same realm until I realized that this is not something I am. It's something I went through. See, for so long, I used being a domestic violence victim as my identity. I didn't use it as something I went through. I used it as that's me. And so I played the victim for so long in so many different situations because I was used to being the victim. And I had to realize that I'm not a victim. I'm a victor. Right. I got through something. I'm somebody. And that doesn't define me. Yeah, it's part of my past, but it's definitely not the definition of Sharissa Hardaway. And this book helped me realize that I can write this book. I turned 40 in May. And I said, when I write this book, it's going to be to close that chapter, because that part of me that's still defined as a victim was holding me back from being great, from being who I can be. So I had to write this book in order to say, I'm going to close this chapter so that I can continue to be the great person I am, and I know I can be.
That's right. That's right. So proud of you.
Thank you.
Would you be willing to read one of the chapters from your book?
Sure. So in my book, I have 7 different chapters. I call it 7 signs. So every time I went through a chapter, it was like a sign that I missed. And I wrote it that way because I wanted anyone reading it to know, if you're going through it, these are the signs. Look for them, because I saw them. I just avoided them because I wanted to believe that the love he was giving me and the love I was giving back was going to cancel those signs out. And it doesn't happen that way. God gives you signs for a reason. And when you avoid them until you identify them, he's going to keep throwing them at you. So my 7 signs were the signs before it really got full blown into a domestic violence relationship. So my second chapter is called Isolation. I'm going to read it to you. I think this is the hardest sign for me, because in my head, once someone can isolate you, then they can control you and manipulate you, because you have no one else. So whatever they feed you, it's like feeding a child something constantly. If you continue to tell that child that every day, all they hear is from you saying, you're ugly or you're not smart, that child, even though they may be as smart as they could be, will always constantly say, no, I'm dumb, because this is what I'm being told. So once you're isolated and you only have that person, whatever they feed you is what you identify as. And that's where this came from me. So I'm going to start the chapter. Every chapter I start is a sign, and I explain what it means. So my second chapter, my second sign is isolation, the act of being separated from others. So remember how I told you we needed each other 24/7? You won't know that because that's chapter 1. But I explained that. That almost meant I had no one but him. See, one night, like we usually did, we were hanging out with the fellas. So we had, before I can kind of explain a little bit, we had a group of friends. That's how we met. We had the same group of friends. I had never met him in that group of friends before, because once I went to college, he had been away. So when he came back is when I came back to visit from college, and we ran into each other. So we had the same group of friends. His cousin is my best friend. So they were like my brothers, and his friends, we went to elementary school. The Catholic elementary school I told you about was like across the street from a building they all lived in. So if you didn't go to the Catholic school with me, and that's how we knew each other because you live right across the street. So we had known each other since 6-7 years old. So we were hanging out with the fellas, and now because we had been so used to being with one another, in the middle of a joke, he leaned over and kissed me. It didn't shock me or bother me because I was with him. Again, we were in our own little world. We didn't even notice that it might have bothered the other fellas. And oh boy, it did. No one said anything while I was there, but that night was a rare night where he let me go home. I never realized why he let me go home, because he used to complain so much about me leaving him. But thinking back, I guess kissing him proved to him where I was and who I stood with. As soon as I got home, though, the phone didn't stop ringing. The fellas called me, yelling and literally ordering me not to date him. They said, you don't know him like we know him. He's not the guy for you. But I couldn't understand it. Sure, he was a little rough around the edges, but he loved me. And I knew he loved me. And I was not going to stop seeing him for anyone. So they gave me an ultimatum, him or them. What do you think my choice was? Of course, I chose him. And boy, were they pissed. I couldn't believe they didn't understand. I tried to tell them that how much he loved me, but they didn't want to hear it. They said they weren't going to support us, and they would cut me off. Cut me off? No way. We had been friends since 6 years old. We were like brothers and sisters. Our families had dinners together. We celebrated holidays together. They were never going to cut me out their lives. But I was wrong. They truly stopped talking to me. They would literally walk past me in the street or in the building, even in the elevator, without a second look. It stung so bad. These were my brothers, and I couldn't understand why they couldn't see how happy I was. I had met him through them. I figured they would be happy we could all hang out as couples now, but that was not the case. So now I truly just have him, and he knows it.
One of the things that I speak on constantly is isolation. Unfortunately, I have met at least 2 women that have been murdered by their partners, their intimate partners, their spouses, their boyfriends. And one of the things was in one of the situations, the family knew that she was being abused. And whenever she called for help, they were there for her. And then at one point she left, came back, left, came back. And the family said, "We're done with you." And the minute that they said, "We're done with you," where she felt she had no one to turn to, is when he murdered her. So no matter how many times, and I speak on this constantly, no matter how many times the person asks for help, because it's not saying I'm going to leave and walk away. People in domestic violence relationships tend to leave at least 3 times and go back because they always think the person is going to change, or the person loves them, or the person comes looking for them. So they just think, oh, he loves me so much, he's really going to change this time. So in those times that people go back, don't turn your back on them. The minute that you turn your back on them and leave them alone and they're in complete isolation is usually when they lose their life. Sharissa, can you tell us what was the breaking point for you? What was the point that you decided, I'm out of here and I'm not coming back?
So we ended up having a baby. And I love how you said people in domestic violence situations go back, because it's so funny that my first breaking point was being beaten till he beat my eyes shut. So I had 2 black eyes, but they were shut, like solid, that I couldn't see. And I was about 6.5 months pregnant at the time. And we were actually renting a room from his cousins. And he came up in the morning and got just furious. And he just started swinging. And his cousin literally knocked the door down into our bedroom and grabbed him off me. And when I realized what was going on and how much pain I was in, I realized I can't see. And it was so embarrassing just to have, like, his cousin took him outside to give him some air, and his cousin's wife was in there, and she's like, "You got to go home. I can't let this happen to you. Like, I won't let this happen to you on my watch." And she called my mom as I'm yelling the number because I can't see. And we were on the 4th floor, and she literally had to walk me down step by step because I'm pregnant and I can't see. And that was the first time I left. The second time, I actually went back. I had my baby. He was there for the birth. And we decided, let's try again. And in my head, it was, okay, now we have a baby together, so maybe it'll get better. And it just got worse. See, before my daughter, it was maybe here and there we'd have an argument and he'd get physical. after we moved back in together and I had my daughter, it was every day. And my true breaking point was, we had gotten to an altercation in the street, and there used to be a group of Spanish men that lived across the street from me. Older Spanish men, great men. And we were arguing in the street, and they all came running across the street like, listen, we hear her screaming in there every day. We mind our business, but you brought it outside, so you got to get off this block. Like, we're going to take care of her. You got to get off this block. And so he had to leave. They literally moved him out the block. And I was in my house, and I had so many altercations in that building that the neighbors would always check on me. So there's a lady who, I love her to death. Her name is Shirley. Her 2 sons would stay with me. They would sleep on the couch. They would take turns staying with me because I lived on the first floor, and they were scared he was going to come through the window and try to hurt me. And so one day, both her sons and her daughter were in my house. I was making breakfast, and the older son wanted to go outside and get a cigarette. So I have a baby, so you're not going to smoke the cigarette in my house. So he went to the store and got the cigarette, and I left the door open. I had done it millions of times before that because he had been gone now, let's say 6 months. And I had left the door open, and I heard what I thought was my friend coming back in. His brother was in the kitchen making his plate. I was feeding my daughter, and he just walked in. And I was stunned. I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. And before I could say anything, he turned and realized the gentleman was in the apartment. So they started to go at it. And they went at it for a while in the apartment. They were just like yelling back and forth with each other. Nothing physical at first. And then he pushed him like into the hallway. And they were yelling in the hallway. And I was standing in the doorway holding my daughter. And he turned and looked at me. And I looked at him, and he stopped talking. The other guy was like, why don't you just leave? She doesn't want you. There's nothing going on with me and her, because I guess that's what he assumed. He's like, we're just here to protect her. And he's trying to like explain it to him and kind of calm the situation down, but make sure that he is going to leave. And like in the midst of everything, he blew it to the door and slammed the door behind him. So now it's just me and him in the apartment, and he starts going off. And he's hitting me and punching me, and I end up falling to the floor. And at this time, I had my daughter in my arms. She's about 6 months old. And he kicked me. He tried to like kick me in my face. I tried to shield my daughter, but he got the top of her head. And I ended up having to call. Once he realized he kicked her, he ran. And the guys finally got into the apartment. I finally let them in, and I'm screaming because there's blood everywhere. I'm bleeding everywhere. I don't know. And at first, I didn't even realize she was hurt. I thought the blood was mine, and I had just bled on her. So somebody had already called the ambulance because they heard all the noise and the police. And when the ambulance comes in, they're like, the baby's bleeding. And my whole world was over. I had never, ever, ever imagined in my life that he would hurt her. And truly, I hurt her. You know, I put her in that position. I put her in a situation where she could be hurt. It wasn't him. I mean, he did the act. But if I would have been able to get out of the situation, she wouldn't have been in that situation.
It's not your fault.
I know.
It's never your fault.
But it broke me. And we had a whole court case. And I know you up in Connecticut, they call it DCF, but in New York, it's ACS. So when I went to the hospital, she had to get 7 stitches. And I had to get stitches as well that I never got because they wanted us to go to 2 separate parts in the ER. And I'm like, I'm not leaving my baby. So I'm there, and the police are like, listen, we know you've been to this hospital several times. We have a record. I've had 4 broken ribs. I've had my nose broke 3 times. So they have a record of all the things I've gone through. And they're like, we know what's going on in your household. And what we want to tell you is this. Now it's, leaked over to your daughter. And if you don't tell us what's really going on, we're going to take her from you. And it broke me. And I just started singing. And I told my whole story. And ACS actually ended up giving her a caseworker. Not for a case against me, but for a case against him. So she had her own social worker for a year. And every so often we had to go back to court. And he was there. And we had to tell our sides. And the judge wanted to know why he still wanted custody. And what was I going to do? And I remember sitting there and my lawyer saying to me, listen, if this doesn't work out well, they could give him custody. And the judge is talking, and she's like, I want to hear from Sharissa Hardaway. And she said, I need you to tell me how you feel about this man. And I looked at him, and I looked at her, and I said, I love him. And the judge looked at me with this face like of disgust. And she's like, so how do I know you're not going to go back to him? And I took a moment, and I sat, and she just stared at me, and I said, I love me and my child more. And that's how you know I'm never going back. And I never did. And honest, the abuse didn't stop. Just because I wasn't with him, I would still see him. And anytime I saw him, before I got with my fiance now, anytime I saw him, he would hit me. I remember one time walking down Fordham Road with the stroller in my hand, and thank God this Fordham Road is crowded all the time. So he came from the side and just punched me. And I didn't know what was going on. I got nervous. I had let the stroller go, so now I'm panicking. But everybody jumped in and grabbed him and grabbed me, like, are you okay? You okay? And he said, every time I see you, this is what it is, you know? And I didn't realize it was just me. See, and I'm not saying every man that does this or goes through this is the same way, but mine was a coward. See, he could flex his muscles for a woman, but he can never flex his muscles for a man. So once I got with my fiance, we've been together almost 15 years. He would see us together. He would keep it walking. He wouldn't say anything. Sometimes he wouldn't even look at me, but we knew it was him. You know, we knew, but that was my breaking point. When he hurt her, and I had to really sit and think about it to myself. Like I did love him, but I loved her more, and I still love her more to this day. And I will never, ever, ever let anybody hurt her. And I knew then that I was done.
Sharissa, did he ever serve time?
He did, actually. Back then, I don't know if it wasn't popular or it wasn't just something that was really talked about. He only did about 3 months. And it's funny because it wasn't because of me. I had went to the doctor, the ER so many times that they had a record. So somebody at the hospital reported it. And they came to the house, 2 detectives. I never forget because I was panicking when they came to the door because we were sitting down eating breakfast. And they knocked on the door and I was like, and they were like, we need you to come outside, Miss Hardaway. And I stepped outside and my heart was pounding. They're like, we're coming to get Al. We're coming to get him now. And we need you to know you're safe. And I'm like, you can't do this. Like, you can't do this. I actually spent, I want to say 4 or 5 hours at the ADA in the Bronx pleading with them not to do it. And every time I tell that story, they're like, what? But what if he would have never got any time? What if they would have kept him for a few days and he would have been let out? He was going to come find me. And that was my scare. It wasn't that I really wanted him out because I can be very honest with you. There are times that when we lived in that apartment after I had my daughter that I begged God to take me because it was so hard. But I was just scared of what the repercussions were. Even though he knew it wasn't me who put him behind bars, in his eyes, it still was me because I went to the hospital. Mm-hmm. They got the record because of me. Mm-hmm. So in his eyes, it was still me. And I just panicked. Like, what if it's not enough time to get away? What if he still finds me? People laughing like, but you have all this family and you have all these friends. And why would you think? Because that's what I was conditioned to think, that there was no way he was never going to find me. Like, I always felt like it didn't matter where I went, he was going to find me. And I didn't know how bad it would ever get.
Did he threaten your family?
He used to tell me if I leave him, he was going to kidnap one of my sisters. And I used to think he was like, I think that's when I really knew, like, this is really scary because I left. And this is before I had my daughter. I left. I was like, ha, ha, ha. And he called me and I was like, hello. He's like, yeah. I'm like, what are you calling me for? He's like, hold on. I got somebody on the phone for you. And it was my little sister. He had picked her up from high school and told her that I needed her. And so she came with him. And I was like, my only response back was like, I'll be there now. He's like, you better hurry up. And my sister, oblivious to the whole situation, because like I said, I was one of those who didn't tell my family. My family members are probably on now, and this is the first time they're hearing any of these stories. So I never wanted it to affect them. I always felt like it was my problem I had to deal with. So the fact that it was that easy for him just to pick her up, because like I told you, my sisters and my brothers were best friends. So he knew if he went to them and said, oh, she needs you, they were running. And I couldn't have that. I couldn't have one of them get hurt because of me. So I went back.
What about a restraining order?
He has a lifetime one, actually. For my daughter, they gave him a lifetime restraining order when she was 4. And I've had several. I just had to keep renewing mine. And then I got to a point where I stopped. And I know people say, oh, you may need it. And it's true. Some people do need it. I'm not going to say that they don't. But for me, I felt like I had to face him. See, when I finally faced him as a woman, it was nothing he could have. It didn't matter what he said, what he did. I was strong on my own. And I knew I didn't need anybody else to help me get through what I was going through with him. But I had to get there. I had to believe in myself. I had to love me to know I was above all that. So I personally didn't need a restraining order. I do tell women that they do need restraining orders because you never know. When I did have a restraining order, he used to come to my job. I worked on Fordham Road. I was a manager at the Gap in the Bronx. I used to do overnight, and he used to come to the job, and security would be like, you can't come in here, because they knew that I had a restraining order. They didn't know the depth of the situation, but they knew I had a restraining order and that he wasn't allowed to be around me.
So even though he had the restraining order and he was still coming around you and threatening you, and he was still coming around you and hitting you, he never went to jail off of any of that.
Hold on. I'm so sorry. I missed that, Lillian.
It's okay. My question was that even though he had the restraining order not to come around you, and he was coming around you and he was still hitting you on the street, he never went to jail off of the restraining order?
Did I call in for the restraining order? I'm sorry. It keeps cutting out on my side. I apologize.
My question is regarding the restraining order. So he has the restraining order, but he's still coming around and looking for you. And he's still hitting you when you're on the street. And he never did time off of
only the 3 months he did.
But not from a restraining order.
Not from a restraining order.
A restraining order is more of a paper to scare you. It really holds no merit unless they have a restraining order. You call the cops, and they actually see him there.
Yes.
But
it didn't. So where I lived, when I first got the restraining order, I lived in an apartment building, and I didn't have a cell phone. So the corner store had back then we don't have them no more. Let's tell them my age, but we had payphones. So in my head, even though I had the restraining order, if he got into my apartment, it was no way for me to get to that phone. Like, even though he had a restraining order, by the time anything happened, he would have been long gone for me to have. And it's funny, and I'm so happy that domestic violence is looked at better now, and people actually understand it, and people are really honing down on it because of the lives that are being lost. Because back then, I lived 2 blocks away from a precinct, and even when I did call, it took them an hour to get to me. When they did get to me, they would say like, oh, you and your boyfriend fighting? And I'm like, no, he tried to kill me. And they're like, ma'am, how serious is it?
Yeah.
I just told you he tried to kill me.
It's a joke. It's just the restraining orders. Going back to what you said about domestic violence being a topic, like a real crime. Like they've even have like little setups in the precincts now. Like, the SUV, they do have those. I think what we what our goal here is Ajusta tu Corona is to approach so that the woman would know when to get out before any of these happens. We teach the red flags. Lillian, you can back me up
Yeah.
with this. So our approach is, when we find someone who's in the midst of it, it's kind of hard because, as you said, you couldn't see, you were with blinders because of the isolation. So it's harder to reach someone there, even though with the intentions and the knowledge to say, hey, we can't be here no more, let's go. You're still going to say, mind your business, I'm good. And there's a lot
You're
of
never
factors
gonna
behind it. Yeah,
you're never gonna get out until you're ready to get out.
exactly.
And it's sad that it's like that, but it's so true. Because I had people and I've had people in this situation save me millions of times. I have fraternity brothers who moved me all the way to Queens at one point, and I stayed with them for a little while, and I still went back because I wasn't finished. I hadn't reached my breaking point, and everybody's breaking point is different.
I think also aside from the breaking point, I would say that there's the fear factor of the, you teeter totter on this love and the brainwashing or to some effect. So you teeter on it and you're safer. We lie to ourselves when we say, but I love him, but he loves me, but he's the only one who got me and understood me. So what we at Ajusta tu Corona do is we're trying to get ahead of the ball and teach. When you see these signs, run like hell.
Yep.
When you feel this, when the energy is like that, light those firecrackers and run. And it's like, so that's what we want to do. We want to bring out awareness of your environment.
Yes.
Because love is love, and love is supposed to be beautiful and all this kind of stuff. But you know what? It comes in all shades, and we need to have an open mentality as well as the open heart to decipher what is for me and what is not, and what is safe and what is not. And that's where the difficulty comes in. What do you say, Lillian?
So I agree with you 100%. But with our program is, first of all, we'd like to bring it to young women and explain to them what the red flags are, so that when they're going through life and through their journey, once the red flags start to reach them, they'll say, hey, I remember this. So I was spoken to about this when I was younger. Then we want to hit the demographic of the people that are in it, and we can try to save. So we have to they have to acknowledge their now and know where they're at and say, and be ready to go on. And then we try to help them with their healing, moving along to letting them become successful in their own businesses. Because I'm all about entrepreneurship and women's empowerment. So there's different levels to our program. But what you're talking about is great. I just want to backtrack a little bit because of what you said. The whole reason that I asked about the restraining order, and you're saying that domestic violence is looked at differently now. Yes, it is looked at differently, but unfortunately, there is no funding for it. So there's all these programs out there, and the police are supposed to be stricter with it, and they're supposed to recognize it, and they're supposed to take the woman and bring her to a safe place, but there's no funding. So when I asked about, did he go to jail? He should have been in jail every time that he got near you with that restraining order. And those things have to be honored, because this is why so many women, one of the women that died, I mean, in Connecticut, 14 women, an average, it could be more, an average of 14 women are killed each year, and thousands are victims of domestic abuse.
Yeah, and I think that's the point there. I'm sorry, Sharissa, how old were you when all this started?
When it started, I was 18 going on 19.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
I was 16 all the way to 19. But you described him to the T. He, he was a narcissist, psychopath. Like he would turn. And you're right. He wouldn't even explain his anger. He'll just he'll just react. But yes, it has a lot to do with with the fear factor, like Margarita said, like you said, the fact of, that because it's not taken seriously and he's going to come out the same night or the next day or the following week, that's my ass again. You know what I mean?
It's
So you
true.
want to you want to keep the pit bull down, so to speak, like keep him happy or keep him, there, but whatever, until you figure things out, you tell yourself, right? Your young self and your immature self and your uneducated self, right? Because at that, for me, at that age or in those phases, you do confuse it with love, confuse it with this is going to change, and all that stuff we tell ourselves. And it took for mine to go to jail for drugs, for me to literally dodge that bullet, literally. And because I would have been there with my humble, naive, gullible self, I would have been there and I would have been miserable. I would have been, obviously, or died because, but definitely, it hits different, I believe, when our kids are involved. Me personally, I didn't have my kids involved, but I did see it with his baby mother, with his other kid's mother. And I did had a son by him as well. So it was scary to see. And I grew up in a domestic violence, watching my mother get beat, to the point, and love my father and live with them, till we got older. But I think when the kids are involved, you're right. You did great. You did what you had to do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I think that when you realize that you love yourself and your children more, and mine wasn't so much myself, mine was more, I was worried about my son. I happened to be, I became a mother at the age of 14, and he was 22. And that was statutory rape. But in my eyes, I was living my little romantic housewife picture, and no one could tell me different. And I was not raised like that. My father was such a devoted Catholic and made us go to Catholic school and religious education and the works. And this man was, one of the things that he wanted me to be barefoot and pregnant and stay home and not go to school. But back in that day, they had a house next to the hospital where they educated the pregnant women, the pregnant teenagers. So I was part of that program, and I went faithfully, and I never skipped a beat, and I graduated on time with my high school. What affected me was that he didn't care about anybody but himself. So he wouldn't pay the rent, and I'd be in the closet cowering because the landlord would be banging on the door. Or he'd take his money and buy weed so that he could triple his money, but never did because he smoked all of it. And the fact that my child was hungry, I remember watering down his formula because I was 14. I had no money. I couldn't work. And I remember watering down his formula and coming back home from school and the babysitter saying, "You watered down his formula. He's hungry. He's been crying the entire day." And not giving me money for diapers. And I took like the receiving blanket from the hospital and I made a made pretend diaper. And when I woke up, he took a nap. And when I took a nap and when I woke up, there was feces in the crib all around him. And that like shook me so bad that my child was hungry and I couldn't do anything about it. And then that evening, I got the beating of my life, and the downstairs neighbor called my parents. And my dad said, "Do you want to come home? Are you ready to come home and stay home?" And I was at my parents' door with my suitcase the next morning. But like you said, I went back one more time, and that didn't last too long. And then I was done. Then I became this strong woman that I am now.
Yes.
What you said that your family doesn't know about this and they'll be finding out about this tonight.
Yes.
Is there going to be some tears?
I'm pretty sure. They knew at one point. Everybody knew what was going on, but nobody knew because now it became. See, when he first started, it was always he hit me where no one could see. So I got bruises on my legs. I have a cigarette mark on my shoulder that I have till this day. I've had scars on my back. It was always that way at first. And then it became visible for everyone else to see. But no one ever really knew how it happened. So tonight's stories might be a little wake up call for a few of my family members. But I hope it helps them. I hope it helps anyone. I think that if I would have been able to have someone tell me or seen a visual of like, and to understand that that was wrong back then, I might have left earlier. I mean, everybody, like I said, leaves at their own time, but maybe I would have been able to see the signs quicker. And that's why I wrote my book. I wrote it to let go of that chapter of my life and to put this out there so that maybe my book could be somebody something. So
It will. It will. And our program, like Lillian and Margarita said, we're out to help, all stages and phases and hopefully before it happens.
yes.
But if you touch one person, that's all
I've done my purpose.
Mm-hmm. So we can't wait for your book.
Thank you. I can't wait to give it to you, ladies.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's exciting. But remember, forgiveness takes courage. Whether it's forgiving yourself, forgiving the circumstance at that, forgiving your younger you in that chapter in your life, and not riding the wave of excuses anymore or reasons why. So it's courageous what you're doing. Courageous that you're on the other side of it, and courageous that you're going to put it out there to the world. And stand courageously with the feedback and accept all types of feedback, because you're going to get those that never been in your shoes that are saying, oh, why you wait? You should have did this. You should have did that. You know what? Just let it, listen to it, and keep going, because you didn't make it to where you're at today for what? You made it because you're courageous enough to have fought through it and to have forgiven yourself and all those around you. And in the midst of your chaos, you were blessed with people around you, strangers.
Yes.
And that's God who sent those angels to protect you in those moments. So you were never truly alone.
No.
The door was always open. You just didn't cross the threshold at that time, because if you did so, you wouldn't be who you are today. So there's no mistakes.
No.
So
I had to learn to forgive him too. Yes. Because I had to learn that as long as I hated him, he occupied space in my heart and in my mind. And I didn't want him to continue to have some kind of hold on me. So I had to forgive him to be a better me. Yes. So I don't hate him. I just hope that he's another person who learns from this book.
Well, yeah, hate is a strong word, but forgiveness takes courage. Forgetting takes a lifetime. You're never going to forget. You're just not going to be, sitting down having a picnic in that memory anymore. Mm-hmm. And then, you know what? Letting go takes wisdom. And that's where you're at. You said, I don't hate him. You're just not going to hold space in your heart no more. And you have to let go of that chapter. But he's a lifetimer. For whatever reason, he's going to be a lifetimer. And he did add sazon to your life.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're a writer now. Because
and a beautiful child.
Yeah.
And now I think that's why I could never hate him, because without him, I could have never had her. And they always say you have a boy first because you needed to be loved, but you have a girl first because you needed to grow up. And she helped me grow.
Oh, that's beautiful.
We're putting down at the bottom of the screen the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Anyone that you know that needs it, If you yourself need it, please reach out, speak to someone. Don't wait for it to be too late. Take advantage of the help that's being offered out there. We're putting our little grain of sand out there to help other women or other victims of whatever the word is that we use all the time.
Adversity. I couldn't say it either.
Yeah, victims of adversity. My mind just went blank there for a minute because I'm listening to Sharissa's story and thinking about mine and how similar they are. Um, Sharissa, when do you think that we're going to be able to actually hold this book
So
and get to read it?
I am pushing for. I want to be done with the book by January 1st. So I'm pushing to have it out probably by March. My fiance's birthday is March 26th, and what he doesn't know is that he really was the motivation for me writing it, because he's always had my back, and he's always told me that whatever happened to me didn't matter, and I was beautiful inside and out, and my shine never was dimmed. And so I was thinking about releasing it on his birthday, kind of like an ode to real love. So
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes.
Gina Ryan says, yes, I want the book ASAP. Hello, Anna. Hello, Argenis. Jeannie, welcome. Some of these people have spoken to me. I don't. We've never seen each other, but now they've all seen my face now.
yeah.
We we want to. So you're hoping that the book will be in print by March 26th. And what
Yes.
does it have a name?
So I first started off the book because I said it's got like 7 signs in it, like the red flag signs.
Mm-hmm.
But one day I was sitting in my room and the kids were running around, and I've always said, I don't even remember when I didn't say, is when people say I love you to me, I always say I love you more. And it never dawned on me to use that phrase until I sat back and I realized it says love you more. And I remember that's exactly what I told the judge when she asked me, well, if I love him, why would she believe that I wouldn't go back? I told her it's because I loved me and my daughter more. And I said, you know what? That's going to be the title of my book. Love you more.
Oh, I love it.
That's awesome.
That is beautiful.
Love
Thank you.
you more.
Yes,
With
love you
emphasize
more.
the you, like
Mhm.
yourself.
So
I love it.
our Conversations with Ajusta Tu Corona is a weekly show. Um, every other week in Spanish, every other week in English. And if you know of other people who are ready to tell their story and share it, we would appreciate this for you, Sharissa, and also for our audience that is out there listening. If you're ready to tell your story and put your little grain of sand, out there, and know that you can help someone by telling your story, you never know who your story will inspire. Like Sharissa's was very similar to mine's. I was younger. Michael is saying that his service is choppy and he's got angry emojis.
That's my fiance.
And the angry emotions could also be because he's taking care of the kids. And Marley handles him. He can't handle Marley.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But this will be recorded and will be on Facebook, so
Perfect.
he can rewatch it
And
anytime.
on YouTube.
Yeah,
So we
YouTube.
have a
Oh,
YouTube
perfect.
channel also, so people can go back and watch some of our episodes.
Yes.
We'd like to take the time to thank everybody. Michael also says he's proud of you, baby.
Oh.
He's a sweetheart. We like to take the time to thank everybody that came on to watch, and especially you, Sharissa, for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, for having me.
Know how important it is for other people to be inspired by what you offered tonight. So I am completely touched. Every day we have a message, or every week we give a message. And my message to all the women out there and to everyone out there who may be facing adversity, never forget how amazing you are. Never forget how exceptional you are. Ajusta tu corona and keep it moving.
Me, I say, remember to feed your spirit and nurture your ego. No matter what's going on in your day, feed your spirit love, gratitude, and kindness.
Yes, I always use the word beautiful, and you're beautiful, and you're, you know, and you're pretty, and I always compliment other women, you know, with what we think is the most powerful compliment, which is your outer, right? You're outside. So I saw this girl say, I heard her say, I apologize if I called you pretty before. I should have used you're powerful, you're strong, you know, other words, like Lillian said, you know, you're exceptional. So I'm going to try to use those words more to compliment my beautiful ladies. You're strong, you're courageous, you are tenacious.
Sharissa,
Exactly.
is there a last word that you would like to leave with our audience?
I'd like to say God doesn't make mistakes. He put you out here for a reason, not for someone else to use you as a tool or a punching bag. He put you out here because you're one of his children. Don't ever let anybody dim your light. He gave you that to shine bright. So continue shining.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Have a great
ladies.
night.